Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, use the hashtag Rising Woman Leaders, follow me on Instagram at Meredith Ram, and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to get all the new and inspiring content. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. I am so excited to be here today with Katie Burke, formerly a digital marketing guru and graduate student of strategic communication. Katie Burke began her divine feminine awakening and remembering when she conceived her daughter. This journey of self-healing and radical self-worth led to the modern Priestess Movement and her own self-actualization. Katie administers the feminine expression of Christ consciousness coming from the spiritual traditions of Mary Magdalene and the ancient Egyptian teachings of Isis and Hathor. She currently is pregnant with her second child and enjoying the summer with her daughter and leading bi-monthly meditations with her partner, Burke. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Meredith.
Yeah, I felt like kind of giddy this morning, like a little girl, just to feel like reconnecting with a priestess sister, and I'm very excited to just hear more about your journey and connect with you.
Let's go there. I'm so excited to share. Have some girl talk time. Yeah.
So your awakening began when you conceived your child. And I wonder if you could tell us just a little bit of what your life looks like before that, and what that moment was like.
Yeah, that was I think my awakening started long before then, but that was when I decided to take action on the intuitive awakening that I was going through and not really giving any attention to, and so I think my awakening started when I conceived her. Just the way that she was conceived felt so magical, and it was the first time in this lifetime, actually, that I just really understood that magic is a real word that we can use to really, there's no other word that could describe how it felt to become pregnant with her. The day that I conceived her, a huge eagle came and landed on a low branch and just sat with me for a while. And I knew that I was just, this is what's going on today. There was some magic in the air. And then I conceived my daughter, and it was the catalyst for me to just step away and step into a new timeline. It was almost like there was just this option of a path that conceiving her showed. It was almost like scales fell, and I saw a different way to be and a different definition of womanhood and motherhood, and it all was just right there in front of me. And it was just, do you want to step this way now? Do you want to go on that path now? And so that for me felt like such a big beginning, and it's certainly a huge catalyst. I started asking myself questions that I probably wouldn't have asked myself before becoming pregnant, and a lot about womanhood, a lot about motherhood, a lot about life. So a lot about love and self-love and self-care, extreme self-care. I took such incredible care of myself during that pregnancy in particular. And so it really just opened my eyes to a new path of life. Yeah.
I imagine getting to experience that in your own body, magic literally happening in your body, creating
Yeah.
life, and feeling like, wow, there's more than just me here. And everything that I do to take care of myself is also affecting this being.
Yeah. It was looking back on it, I was really experiencing each of my different bodies so presently. I was so impressed with my physical body that I was like making a baby. I just remember in our pregnancy came a little bit as a surprise. I mean, we were trying to get pregnant, but I had just had surgery, and my right ovary and fallopian tube was removed within it was like 6 months. And then about 6 months later, I got pregnant. And so I just wasn't really, there was no expectation. I was hopeful, but I had no expectation of becoming pregnant anytime soon, which is a beautiful way to become pregnant.
Wow.
Is really, really a beautiful way to find out that you have a child when you really want that, but there's no, there wasn't a real expectation that it may happen. So it made it, so there was that element of magic, the divine timing, and so many ways felt like such a big gift and a big miracle for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. My mom had my sister when she was 29, and then a few years later, she was trying to have another child, and it wasn't happening. And so she went to the doctor and found out actually that one of her ovaries and fallopian tubes wasn't active. So her chances of getting pregnant were half. So she was like, okay, just letting it go, stop, trying.
Yeah.
And it was 10 years after my sister was born, I showed up.
Yeah. You just release it. Yeah. Wow. I've heard that story so many times when I share this story. It's so many, and I love that. I love the energy and love behind that when you just surrender to say, okay, well, I accept and I surrender, and then everything opens up. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. So I want to hear about your birth experience.
Oh yeah. I've started to remember more of it now because I'm 32 weeks pregnant this week. And so I've started to think more about the details of because I'm starting to remember it more. It's strange. Birth has been strange for me, and I'm sure a lot of women who have given birth can relate to this, that you just kind of forget everything, really. I mean, you forget not everything, but a lot of the details I just forgot until actually just last night I started watching some really empowering birthing videos, and I just started to remember, like, oh, birth, oh my gosh, it's this huge, it's epic. It is epic. My experience with Lincoln, my daughter, was at a certain point, I just lost the ability or surrendered the ability. I think it was more of a just surrender. I couldn't speak I was just not going to speak to anyone. I mean, forming words felt like that was going to take so much energy to do, and I don't have any energy to spare. And I was so inward. It's such a portal and such a womb space that your consciousness kind of becomes completely enveloped in, and time totally, I don't know how it, I know kind of how long it was, but it, wouldn't matter if somebody said it was 2 days or 2 hours. It's just like, I don't know. And I had a lot of visions of, right before I gave birth to her, I think it was a lot of her star family and my star family, just a lot of visions of, felines and almost like a Sekhmet kind of figure. And, just really so many flashes of different spirit guides and animal guides that were connected to both of us, and they're assisting us. And not really any messages or anything that I could say, like, and this is what, I was told, or this is what. It just was more of, I just felt very at home with her after she was born. I just felt, and I was talking to my partner, Ben, about this. We were leading a meditation, and something really beautiful he said that really stuck with me is that feeling of coming home, or just feeling at home. And that's so much how I felt when my daughter was born. It was just like, oh, we came home to each other. And he said that that feeling of coming home is very, very, very close in frequency to the word ascension. It's a very similar, if we had to strip away the language of it and just look at the feeling, that they're so close. And I actually didn't really put that together until just now, but it was a huge part to actually birth her and to have her and feel that she's now here on her own. I don't have to carry her literally in my womb. I was so happy about that, to be honest. I was really happy to not be pregnant anymore and to have her with us. And it was, again, just a lot of magic, a lot of things that are hard to put words to, but it's, I would encourage everybody, just if you're looking for some, like, a rabbit hole to go down, just like find some really empowering birth videos. That's what I did last night. And I just watched a few women give birth, and I was just like, we are so incredible. And so it's, pregnancy and birth, and it's so interesting because it's such a, common, it happens every day. And yet there is so much magic and almost like time travel and like quantum universes opening up within a woman's experience. It's just incredible. And it's happening all the time. And it's just that paradox. It just blows me away sometimes when I think about it. So, of how, normal it is, but it's so not. So, it's a hard one to put words to. And I'm really excited. I think this second child has been a completely different pregnancy and a different experience. So I don't know what I'm in for with this, but certainly it gave me a lot of confidence about what birth can be. And, it certainly was really challenging. It was really physical. When I did lose my ovary, the pain from that was about the same as childbirth. It was really intense. So I had almost kind of, I was grateful for that experience, because as I was in birth, I was like, okay, I can be with this, and be present with it. There's nowhere else to go. You just have to go into it. And it was, I'm trying to think if there was anything else really, but it was such a relief to meet her, and such a joy. Yeah.
It sounds like it's an experience that really shows you what you're capable of, and shows you your power.
I remember one of the first thoughts I had after I actually gave birth and was holding her. I was like, one of the things I think I'd always told, I could never run a marathon. I'm not a runner. And I was always so impressed by people who could run marathons. I was just always like, wow, that's, I told myself that's never something I could do. And then after I gave birth, it was one of these things I was like, oh, I can do a marathon. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I could definitely run a marathon. I just, I was in birth for however, it was 17 or 19 hours or whatever, not, in labor. It's like, I could totally train for a marathon and run a marathon. I had all this confidence after giving birth that I'm like, oh, anything I want to do, I'll be able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. And I'm curious about just your priestess journey, and when you started to really feel that, and what that was like, and when different archetypes or ascended masters started coming to you, who came to you, and what was your connection with that?
Okay, yeah. Oh, I'd love to talk about that. Thank you for asking. So this, I remember talking to my friend Lizzie, who is Lizzie Ray Rose is her website, and she just told me, and this was before I really believed in myself as a channel, as someone who could receive messages. I really thought I would have to go to someone like a friend like Lizzie. I thought I'd have to just kind of outsource this skill. That's just what my belief was at the time. And she said that Isis was so with me amongst a very large council called the Ptolemaic Council. And this is, for me, they feel like my queen council. I feel like there's a lot of queen energy, a lot of ancient Egypt memories and rememberings that kind of come when I meditate with this council. But the overlighting mentor to that and to my life is the goddess Isis. And that was the first time. It wasn't the first time, actually. Every time I pulled cards, Isis would show up, and Isis and Maeve. And so she was in my awareness, but I wasn't really taking it seriously, and I didn't think that I could connect to her. I just believed that wasn't possible, that I had to go through someone who had a gift. I didn't think that I had that technology within me at the time. And so with really good friends and really, a lot of support, I started to ask myself, well, maybe I do. Maybe I can access my own guidance and not have to, I knew that at that point had reached a lot of empowerment, and it was kind of time to start looking at the word enlightenment and my own connection to my own source. And so that was really when I started to allow some of that priestess energy, and it's completely unfolded and changes and continues to change for me, what that archetype means, how does a priestess live in this world and go to the grocery store and go and is an activist and is a mother, and all of these things that very much we need priestesses out in the real world desperately. And so I'm still continuing to just, I love to meditate on that and think about that. But where it began was very much with Isis. But then the first guide that came to me and I could really feel the presence of was Mary Magdalene. And she was like the sister saying it's totally safe to work with Isis. Safe to sorry, there's a little feedback on my end. So she was the one who encouraged me and gave me a few things to write down. And I would just come back to those over and over again. And a lot of it was really fierce. It was like, you got to stop caring what other people think. You really, you got to stop caring what other people think. You've got to do what's best for you. You really need to stop looking at what other people are going to think about this and your personal connection to these guides. Because some of them, like I said, they're like feline, and they don't look like us, and they feel different, and it's a totally new energy that I didn't see a lot of other people at that time talking about. So I felt intimidated by kind of what was presenting itself to me. But Mary Magdalene was the one who came and was just like, you've got this. It's good. Just keep following it, follow your heart. And was such a gentle, just has that sister, approachable sister, leader that she is. And so then, ever since that, I'm just completely head over heels for Mary Magdalene, and how much she, for me personally, is the guide that comes to me and says, yes, you can. She's the encourager. She's the like, don't give up, and keep your heart open. Don't close your heart off. She's such a, she gives me so many permission slips in ways that I need to hear it. And so that was, I started to feel the difference of when Isis would work through me. And Isis has she's like very much this like mother. There's a lot of mothering energy to her, but she also has, every time I even try to put words to her, I feel like I fall short, but she sees the best for me and is radically committed to to trying to get me to see that as well. And that can be really, there can be a lot of feelings that come up with that. And so Mary Magdalene, I always feel her kind of coming in, and Mother Mary as well. They feel similar but different. And just encouraging me to don't give up on your connection to Isis. Don't give up on your connection to, even with all of the feelings that it brings up, even with all of the fears that you kind of have to be with and go through. So I don't know when that was. It was a while ago. And then I reached out for support to my mentor, Kaya Ra, and that opened up a lot for me and was a big, she was a huge support system for me. And after that, I changed a lot of things in my business and in my life to feel more aligned with what I realized then was like the best word I could think of was priestess. And I really resisted the word itself for a long time. And there's even sometimes that I find myself afraid to use it or wanting to shy away from it or wanting to do something different. But when I really come back to my heart and when I really close out everything else, I know that that's such a true part of at least these few years that I have right now. It just feels like there's a lot of energy behind that, being remembered and giving others permission to dip into that, remembering themselves. But I do think that it's just an aspect of who and what we are. So it's a complicated, it's not really complicated, but sometimes when I try to explain it, it feels very like multi-layered. And and part of it is just because my personal experience feels so personal with it. So it does feel kind of, just vulnerable to keep sharing about it and keep talking about it. Cause it's really asking other people, can you be so vulnerable with yourself and go to the deepest parts of yourself and trust that there's love there. And so it's been quite a journey.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I can relate to so much of just what you shared with, even in beginning to feel that connection to the word priestess and then kind of being resistant of like, oh, who am I to say that? Who am I to to claim that? But I think in you doing so and continuing to connect to your guidance and your guides, that it gives so many other women permission to take on that role. And we do need people doing that and stepping into that. I feel like the last year, it's a new journey for me. And what I've been learning about Mary Magdalene is that she's coming to many people right now. Mm-hmm. That this is the time that she's waited 2,000 years, and that she's helping women know it's safe to share their voices. And I connect to that so deeply of kind of the wounds that she carried of a fear of maybe being stoned, or that her life might be taken if she really stepped up to speak. And I think that has been passed down for many ancient lineages in women, of feeling like, is it safe for me to step forward in this role as a leader and an empowerer? And But now it's happening more and more, and it's safer.
Yeah.
And women are coming together in that support and that sisterhood and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. As you were speaking, something that I always come back to that kind of helps me is that, I think the truest definition of a priestess that has felt most at home for me is just it's service through your embodiment and service through just being so authentic. There's nothing to really do. I mean, there are things to do, but it's really just about what you were saying. It's just saying yes, and saying yes to who you really are, and then not being afraid to emanate that. And there are fears that certainly come up when that starts to emanate out. It's like, oh, can I shine that brightly? Can I really like activate my solar plexus in this bright of a way in my heart? And one of the things, this keeps coming up for me today, is this still working with this term shape-shifting with Mary Magdalene. I think she was such a master at that. And she has started to mentor me just a little bit in what that can feel like, because I'll just be honest, there's like moments in modern society where I don't feel very safe to like be this, to have these conversations, to open myself up. And there's still a lot of suffering in the world, and we should be actively engaging in it to the extent that we feel like we can. And so I was just kind of having that conversation with my guides a little bit today of just like, but like how, and this word shape shifting keeps kind of, coming up anyways. So, we'll see where Mary Magdalene goes with that. But as you were talking about that fear, like how do we counteract that? And I think that there's something to that, staying really true and kind of protecting your innocence and the tenderness of your heart, and being able to, it's almost like taking a newborn baby out into, like, there's a little bit, as a mother, as someone who's like protecting this innocence, there's a little bit of just, fierceness of like, hey, don't touch my baby unless like, or there's just a little bit of like, okay, keep your distance and like talk to mom before you like get to this child. And there's a little bit of that, I don't know, kind of that energy that I'm feeling from her right now, where it's like, it's okay to still to do your work and protect the most tender, most vulnerable parts of what you're still working through. It's such a balance. It's like really, really such a balance.
Yeah. And just the bigger conversation of like vulnerability and having a business, because
exactly,
we will attract people who have gone through similar things if we're willing to share them. Yeah. And also there's a good, I like to tell my clients that if something feels too close, like still too tender, too close to your heart, give it time. Like you don't have to share everything right away. And absolutely. And also it's very, good to have a few things that you feel good about. Like that's something that is just for me and I don't share about that.
It's so good to have secrets. That's another thing that I learned from my friend Lizzie, who works with the fairy realms. And she said, fairies love secrets. It's okay to have your secrets. It's, it's more than allowed. And, I'm glad that you're telling people that. Thank you. That's been a big permission slip that I really needed, as I've continued to do, or just step into my work, is, that figuring out when it's appropriate to share and when I'm ready and when I'm not. And a really good example of this is my husband and my partner Ben came out with the idea of doing this course together and teaching together. And at first I was just like, oh no, I'm not doing that at all. No, I will not. That's a terrible idea. And he was really patient with me, and he kept bringing it up. then it gave me he gave me some space and some encouragement to have that conversation of like, well, what are you ready to share about our partnership and our journey together? And what are you not willing to share? And it was really powerful to realize that, oh, actually, yeah, I can share about this. It feels safe to share about this. So I have to keep checking in all the time on these parts of myself that are ready to unfold and ready to, that I'm ready to let go of too, because there's part of that too. When we share part of our story, for me anyway, it's like, okay, and you can think whatever you want about it. I'm, it's out there and I hope it's of service. I'm not going to attach too much of myself to it. And I'm just going to pray and hope that that's serving the highest good, and that my story, my experience that I went through, I think it was time to share it, and I did. And now I can move on and not be so attached to this, to my heart being so in it. So it's been a big, big, big thing for me this year to find that balance. Yeah.
Yeah. And I trust that it is needed, and that it was just the right timing of people being like, wow, what can I learn from, Katie, about sacred relationship and partnership? And I love to talk more about that. And because I feel like that is very recent and present.
It is.
Tell us about you and Ben and just what that journey's been like.
Yeah, we've been married 7 years. We got married really young. And I just shared it in another interview. It was one of the first times I totally trusted my intuition, which was I met him and I said out loud, I was like, I'm going to marry him. That's who I'm supposed to marry. And I said it out. I knew intuitively, say it out loud, like in my car. And now I understand it's like the wisdom of my higher self of like activating that, throat chakra and just like, yes, I'm claiming it. And it was just after I met him, we weren't even really dating. And then we, I broke up with my boyfriend and started dating Ben, and we were engaged and married in a flash, and like, kind of growing up together, because, those early 20s, there's so much transformation that happens. And so we've been on a very intense journey together and put each other through a lot of initiations and a lot of manipulation and a lot of disrespect along the way, and lying to each other, just treating each other really horribly, especially in the beginning of our relationship, and then having a lot of resentment that we held on to for many years. So it was a really kind of rocky start. And by start, I mean like the first 3 years we were married, it was really difficult. But we had moved to a new city. I didn't really know anybody except for him. And the people, and we were working together at the time, and we were very successful in business, but our home life was just crumbling. It was really difficult. But we could look to this business we were running, and that was kind of our excuse of like, well, we're doing something that's working. We're building this business, and together in a year we had like, it was crazy. The scale that we grew at, it was just, I can't believe it.
What kind of business was that?
So we were doing contracting. It was not very exciting. It was, it was just like exterior contracting for decks, for just, maintenance that you need on the outside of your home, whether it's painting or just really, anything you would contract out for the outside of your home. And we expanded into multiple states and had this huge team, and it was a lot. It was a crazy ride for a married couple in their early 20s. And then I had to leave that situation. I knew that it was it just wasn't worth it. So I left that and I went back to grad school, or I didn't go back. I mean, I went to grad school, went back, continued my education. And from there, just really shelled up for a few years, just because I had so much resentment for the way we were treating each other. And then finally, years had passed, even had my daughter, and like things were getting better, but it wasn't the kind of divine, sacred, totally open, totally honest relationship that I wanted. There was still distance, and there was still some, I just didn't feel like I could share everything with him. And I felt he felt the same way. So we needed to really clear some things. And so we had a big conversation, and it just, we decided to rewrite what we were going to do going forward. Part of that is we opened our relationship, and we both had other partners and started to just give each other a lot of loving space in kind of remembering what our needs are, and like really trying to figure that out, because it was just too difficult for us to do it together. We really needed, for us, we really needed to just to do that with other people and have other mirrors to see our own needs. And then we came back together after that, and it was like the lines of communication were finally like totally open. There was no, it was a lot of agreements made of like no judgment and like just absolute honesty. And it was really difficult, but it was so important for us and for what we had been through, to have something so drastic, to go through something so drastic in our relationship, to then where we could come back together with a totally new perspective of what relationships can be, and like what do you like to do, when you go out on a date. There were so many very, very foundational questions that we just part of it was just that we met and were married so young. And so a lot of those like really foundational things just I didn't know the answers to a lot of really foundational questions for myself, as far as my desires and my needs from another man. And so, so then we were able to come back together, and miraculously, it was just like we were meant to be together. We were meant to do that work together. And that was a while ago that all transpired. And, so the course that we've been leading, it's a lot. I mean, the first part of it is a lot about options in your relationship, and giving yourself permission to speak to the options you would like to see in your relationship. It was a huge turning point for me when I could actually say some really deep desires that I had that did not involve Ben, and just to speak them. I didn't even have the expectations that they would be met, that was what we would act on. But just that I remember coming together, and it was just like, you know what, all options are on the table. Just use your imagination. What do you want to do with this relationship? And so we talked in this first session of this course that we're doing together, is really just a lot of permission giving to explore options of what feels best for you in a relationship, and what does forgiveness feel like. For Ben and I both, what we realized in our journey together is that it's forgiving another person is just so not, it's important, but it's not what it's about. It's all about coming back to yourself and forgiving yourself. And then through that, it's just the other person is forgiven. It just it just kind of naturally unfolds that way. And so, that was the foundation of then now we've been building on top of that. And, so how does sex work into that? And sex is not something that it's no longer, it feels like this input into the relationship. It's an outcome of the relationship. So just taking all of these things and just kind of really like looking at all angles of them and where does it feel good and divine and where doesn't it and why? And so we've been really examining just our relationship and relationships for a few years. And a lot of it was the forgiveness aspect that's really what's up for me, because last Sunday we just recorded the first session, and Ben does such a beautiful job speaking to forgiveness of the self. And it's huge medicine from the goddess Isis as well. Really deeply, deeply forgiving yourself so that you can move forward. And just, she's taught me so much about forgiveness. A lot of the people and clients that I've had this year who have been attracted to me, there's a lot of forgiveness work involved, self-forgiveness and self-acceptance. And the forgiveness and then allowing that acceptance to come through is it's grace. It is magic.
Yeah.
I feel like magic.
Yeah. It sounds like you two gave each other permission to be reborn in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And, rediscover each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was kind of both, not to be, this is funny, but it's true. We were both kind of like going through that Saturn return time of just like, okay, I want to flip over every stone and look at, I'm just,
I'm just starting that.
Yeah. Have fun. You just have that energy of like, I want to explore all of my decisions, and all of the decisions I've made and all of the decisions I have in front of me. You just go so into that. Or at least that was my experience. And now what a relief, because that was a voice in my mind for a long time, being in a marriage for so long and being a young woman in this monogamous relationship for so long, was just so much curiosity about men and just about life and things that I hadn't allowed myself to, or it just wasn't the right time. It wasn't that I hadn't allowed myself to, just probably wasn't the right time for me to explore. And then so saying yes to that timing and yes to the rebirth together, it was very intense, but I saved our relationship in a sense, because it just couldn't continue in the stagnancy and in the silence and in there was just still some separation. So we kind of came back reborn, and there was such transparency. It was just so much easier for our energies to merge together. Which is really a lot about what we talk about. It's, I am a sovereign being. He is a sovereign being. What we are working on is this third entity, which is the relationship. It is the partnership that I can draw energy from. And it's a completely different way of looking at relationship than I had prior. I thought I had to draw from him. I thought I was drawing from Ben. And it's not really that. It's about what we create together. And that's where I can draw my strength from. I'm not so dependent on, I'm not codependent on him, and he's not codependent on me. It's just been a nice switch.
That is. I love that. If there was anyone out there listening right now going through maybe a challenge in a relationship or even another challenge, I wondered what your advice is around connecting to guides or just inner guidance in those times, and where to start with that.
Okay, that's a beautiful question. That's all that I did. It felt like in those hard times, that was so important for me to be in such a tender place with my relationship. And as I was waking up, because it really gave me full permission that the safest place I felt was the space I would create at my altar or so it gave me a chance to strengthen my own sovereignty and my own connection to spirit guides. So what that looked like for me, what I did, I would just sit, and I was really encouraged by Isis, especially in like the beginning, just sit and play. Like there's no, just sit down and play with your cards, or like play with making jewelry, or play with, with Isis. There's a lot of like, if you feel really drawn to like making jewelry or knot work, there's a lot of, we did that a lot in ancient Egypt. So there's just, or like, making malas or whatever it is, just something you kind of do with your hands and you just sit and like meditate, is really what I was encouraged to do in the beginning. And when I felt that I could, it was writing, and it was conversational, and just letting yourself use that imagination, because that's what it feels like in the beginning. It feels like you're making things up. So, and that was something I was just encouraged to like, just lean into that. If it feels like you're making it up, you're doing it right, just go with it. And so I would write the conversations that I was having, either with myself or with my guides, or like an aspect of myself, the 7-year-old version of myself. I would just have these conversations and write and write and write. And I did that for a few months, where I had a very dedicated writing practice that was just personal journaling. And it was really what carried me through the really tender, hard, transfer, that rebirth, where it's just really tender. And it's still, you're trusting a lot. I was in a place of like, well, I don't know, certainly feels like crap, but I'm just trusting that this is where it's supposed to be. And that can be, that's a difficult place to sit. But what makes it easier for me was the writing. And, sometimes it'd be just really simple, like pulling a card and writing to whoever it was that showed up that day, and just see what happened. Sometimes it wasn't very long, and that was okay. But having a dedicated space, and I remember we lived in another home, and just so many hours that I would just spend sitting on the floor, just in that same spot, kind of playing and just being with myself. And so it doesn't always need to look really complicated, or, like ritual doesn't have to be, sometimes I love an ornate, coordinating an ornate, like beautiful, like water ceremony or something. That's a lot of fun. But for the most part, it was really playing with, beading jewelry or tying knots, or just sitting and letting myself be. And that was really healing. And you can pray for the healing and for the assistance. Like I remember my mentor would encourage me to like ask for Mother Mary to come and just be at my back, literally just have my back. And that always, and even now, that prayer is still so powerful when I invoke her, when I just feel like I need her at my back. And I just imagine her hands on my shoulder blades. And, or another, really just always makes me feel so safe, as I ask Isis to wrap her wings completely around me, cocoon me in your wings. And I do that out everywhere, anywhere that I need, that I feel like I need that support. So, so those are two guides that I think, they both have such strong mothering energy. So if there's one or the other that you feel more drawn to, I feel drawn to both. And it just maybe depends on the situation. If I feel like I want Mother Mary's, her open hands, or if it's Isis completely protecting me in this like very magical, cocoon. So, there's a lot of ways that we can always ask to feel safer, and you can give yourself permission to just ask and to pray. And that that was a big learning curve for me, honestly. Like, even after I started, I was, it's still, I was waking up, but this idea of such active prayer all day, that's a practice that's still something that amazes me,
Yeah, I recently read in this book that I'm reading, it's a channeled book of Mary Magdalene by Mercedes Kirkle. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I haven't read this. No.
She says that all of the angels, guides, spirits, they're all here and watching us and want to help us, but they respect our free will. So they will not intervene unless they are asked. Yeah. So it's literally, and the times when we feel pain or things are difficult, that's actually God and Spirit beckoning us to come. And all we need to do is to come to that humble place and ask for help.
Yeah.
And that's been such a beautiful practice for me of just starting to do that all the time. Mm-hmm. And the help will come in, and it will. So it's just beautiful to do that. And I love what you shared too about the writing. Just it might at first feel like you're making it up, but just, speaking from the perspective of your higher self or these guides, and seeing what wisdom comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially, I used to really struggle with anxiety and depression. And so that's when I make those prayers now, they always, I feel my breath adjust first. It's almost like they kind of just twist the knobs of my respiratory system. And they're just okay, get back here. And then and you can hear us. So, I love that that's, that they respect our free will. I believe it, right? It's so true, because as soon as the request is made, I always do feel such a difference. Even if I can't notice it at first, even if it's subtle, my breath changes, it's working. It's that step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'd love to hear just what's coming up in your business, any offerings that you're excited about.
I don't know. To be completely honest, this is such a time. I'm giving myself permission to just not know until after this baby's born. Mm-hmm. And I was putting some pressure on myself a few weeks ago to really plan it out. And, so then things could be kind of on autopilot in a sense. And that's just it doesn't feel so good for me. But, something I've just, so I don't really have any offerings really that are, I am so excited about sharing more about essential oils and plant medicine. Has been something I've been guided to this year, where I'm learning and reading so much about plants and the healing aspects of plants and plant consciousness. And I don't know how much that will spill into my work, but it's certainly a passion of mine right now. And playing with essential oils and using them on my family, and just have really loved that. And so for this month, I'm not sure when this will go out, but for September, if anyone wants to, buy essential oils through me, they'll get the entire Modern Priestess Mystery School kind of dripped out to them throughout the year, which is a wonderful way to receive it. I just am finishing up the Modern Priestess Mystery School this month, actually. And so it's such a time for me where that is being finished. And then I'm going to go into birth, and then we'll see in 2018 probably, because I'm having this baby around the end of the year. And then I don't know, but I'm really excited about exploring ways that as modern women we can come together in ways that feel really abundant and really supportive, and incredibly aligned with our service. I want my work going forward to just be very, very accessible. And so that's what I'm pondering on. But I don't really have, just stay in touch until 2018, and we'll see what comes forward then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll just be following your journey with baby.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And all of
send
that.
me Instagram messages. All of the photos that I'll probably be posting about baby toes and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing words before I end this call with a prayer?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for creating these containers for conversations. They're so powerful and so important. So I just want to share deep gratitude for you and for birthing a book. I mean, just thank you. Thank you for doing that and seeing it through. I have felt just the permission that's given in so many different ways that I've seen from different people posting about it. And it's a really, really beautiful thing. And so thank you for everything that you're doing. It's really, and connecting with Mary Magdalene, and I just see her over your shoulder. It's just like such a perfect, So thank you for everything that you're showing yes to.
Thank you. I'll take that in. Yeah, receive it. So let's close our eyes. Just feel back into our bodies. Feel back into our breath. And just kind of expand our awareness into this knowing that we are so held. There are so many protectors and guides and spirits just with us that want to help us, that are always here with us. All we need to do is to open to that, to ask for that, to be willing to be guided. And from that space, just so many miracles will manifest. So I'll bring my hands to my heart and just bow with gratitude. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today, Katie. Thank you to everyone listening. And bow. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.